Some time ago, one of Avatar's greatest mysteries was solved, the whereabouts of Zuko's mother. But do you actually know the story?
Ya llegamos.
Y esto es
Alfrely.
Avatar The Legend of Aang is undoubtedly one of the most beloved series by everyone. When Nickelodeon used to make quality content, its fantastic story and compelling characters made it one of our favorite shows, and we cherish it dearly.
However, despite being a thoroughly developed series, there were still some loose ends and unresolved mysteries. What happened to Ursa, Zuko's mother? Why did she suddenly vanish one night and never return? Fortunately, this question was answered in the comics, so in this video, we'll uncover the mystery of Zuko's mother.
One of the episodes many fans surely remember is Zuko alone from Book 2. It was here that we first saw Ursa, and I'm sure that, by the end, more than one was intrigued by Zuko's mother, including ourselves.
We see a bit of Ursa's story through Zuko's childhood memories. In them, it's shown that during her time in the palace, she spent most of her days raising and loving her two children, comforting Zuko for the way his sister treated him and reprimanding Azula. Why? Well, everyone already knows what Azula is like.
No, you miscalculated. You should have feared me more.
However, everything changed one fateful evening. After Iroh's son, Luten, died, Ozai asked his father to name him as the next Fire Lord instead of Iroh, as Zulan was enraged with him, considering it insolent to make such a request after Iroh had lost his only son in the war. Thus, Azulon ordered Ozai to experience the same suffering as his brother. In other words, Azulon sentenced Ozai to kill his firstborn, Zuko, a child no more than 10 years old. What the heck is wrong with Zuko's family?
After this, we skip ahead to the night when Ursa was last seen. She wakes up her son, hugs him warmly, and tells him that everything she has done was to protect him. After saying some kind words, she puts on her hood and walks out of the room.
The next day, Zuko searches the palace for his mother, but she's nowhere to be found. He asks Azula where their mother is, and in her usual mocking tone, she responds that nobody knows. So, Zuko goes directly to his father and asks the same question, but he doesn't even bother to acknowledge him.
That's the last we heard of Ursa until the very last episode of the series, when Zuko asks his father about her mother's whereabouts, but we don't see his answer. This cliffhanger tormented fans for what felt like an eternity, and when The Legend of Korra finally aired, Ursa was surprisingly acknowledged in the very first episode with this scene.
I've been dying to ask you, what happened to Zuko's mom?
Well, Janora, it's an incredible tale.
Granddad, you look old.
But it was only a very cruel joke.
So, I think the mysteries surrounding Ursa are pretty clear now. Why did she disappear? What happened? How is her disappearance related to protecting Zuko? And most importantly, what happened next? Is she alive? Was she killed? These are all questions that have haunted a lot of people since the series concluded. But fortunately, there are now answers to each and every one of them.
It turns out that after the conclusion of The Last Airbender, a series of comics were published that take place after the finale, but long before the events of The Legend of Korra. They serve as a bridge between these two series and explain many events, such as the formation of Republic City, Toph's reunion with her father, and of course, everything concerning Ursa.
In the comic The Search, it's revealed in a flashback that upon finding out from Azula that Azulon ordered Ozai to kill Zuko, Ursa immediately confronted her husband to stop this madness. He tells her he has no other choice, as defying the Fire Lord's orders is considered treason. Ursa knows her husband is clearly insane, so she realizes she can reason with him. Thus, she offers him a deal. She offers him the throne.
This sparks Ozai's interest, and he requests her to proceed. Ursa explains that she knows how to make a poison that is colorless, odorless, tasteless, completely undetectable, and causes a very calm and peaceful death. The individual who ingests the poison will simply fall asleep and never wake up. Ursa tells Ozai that she can prepare him a vial in exchange for Zuko's life, and once he has the poison in his possession, he can do whatever he wants with it.
Ozai accepts the offer, but under one condition. After the exchange is done, Ursa must leave Capital City and never return. This is because now that Ozai knows that Ursa can make that poison, he fears she might use it against him. Ursa agrees to this without hesitation, but tells him that she's taking her children with her. However, Ozai does not agree to this request, explaining that the children are his insurance. As long as she doesn't show up again, her children won't suffer any harm. But if she attempts to stay in Capital City or take the children away, he will find and kill all three of them.
You're a monster! You're like Hitler, but even Hitler
cared about Germany or something.
But Ursa has no other option, so she proceeds to prepare the poison by grinding some flower petals and mixing them with other substances. She places the mixture in a jar and hands it to Ozai, who later uses it to kill his own father and thus crown himself as the new Fire Lord. As for Ursa, we see her in Azula's room, who sleeps peacefully, probably dreaming of torturing turtle dogs. Ursa moves a lock of her hair and kisses her on the cheek. She does the same with Zuko, but as we saw in the series, he wakes up somewhat confused. She says her farewell words to him and then puts on his hood, boards a canoe, and leaves the city.
Now, that answers why she left and abandoned Zuko, but what did she do after that? Well, it turns out that at the start of the comic The Search, it is explained that Ursa comes from a small village of the Fire Nation called Hyra. She lived there with her parents and was actively involved in the village theater with her then boyfriend Ikem. However, on the very day when Ikem proposed to her, Azulon arrived along with his son to visit Ursa's house so that Ozai could propose to her. This is because Ursa is the granddaughter of Avatar Roku, and both Azulon and Ozai deem her as the perfect woman with whom they can continue their lineage. Consequently, Ursa was forced to marry Ozai.
Therefore, now that Ozai no longer wants her there, Ursa's only option is to return to her hometown. However, since she married Ozai, she was forbidden to have any contact with her past. As a result, when she arrived to her hometown, she discovered the heartbreaking news that both of her parents had already passed away. Poor Ursa, devastated, completely alone, and with nowhere to go, heads towards the theater of the town where she once lived moments of joy, now to cry in silence.
Suddenly, a man approaches her. It's the new director of the Hyra's acting group, Noren, who tells her that he's sorry, but the auditions ended a week ago. Ursa apologizes and tells him that she was only there to relive old memories. Observing her sadness, Noren kindly invites her for breakfast and tries to cheer her up a bit, and she accepts. However, during their conversation while eating, Noren inadvertently addresses Ursa by her name, which startles her because up to that point, she had never told him her name, so she immediately decides to distance herself from him.
Noren stands up and says, "When we were 6, you kicked me in the stomach and pushed my face in the dirt." Ursa stops abruptly upon hearing this and looks back at him, unable to believe what she's hearing. All this time, she was talking to Ikem. Ursa simply utters his name as a tear of happiness runs down her cheek.
Ikem explained that when she left with Ozai, he was completely devastated. He could no longer find peace in the village where he met the love of his life, so he decided to isolate himself from everyone and live as a hermit in the Forgetful Valley. Unbeknownst to him, the valley was frequented by a powerful spirit that roams the valley every so often. If you are lucky, the spirit can grant you a new face, and with it, a new identity and a new life. So, Ikem decided to return as a new person and rebuild his life.
Upon hearing this, Ursa realizes that Ozai deceived her. He never killed Ikem because he couldn't find him, as Ikem was safe with his new face. Ikem then takes Ursa by the arms and tells her that he can take her to the valley where the spirit can grant her a new face, allowing them to live happily together, safe from Ozai. Ursa hesitates at first, as she can simply start a new life now that she's a mother. However, she ends up accepting the proposal with the hope of returning to the city with a new face and being able to see her children once again, even if it's from afar. So they both embark on their journey to the valley and wait there for the spirit.
After living in that place for a few months, they finally encounter the spirit. Ikem urges Ursa to hurry so she can see her children again. However, Ursa is torn. She tells Ikem that after spending time there, she finally feels like she's where she belongs. In response, he suggests a third option. They could retrieve their children and bring them to Hyra to live together as a family. Ursa knows it's incredibly risky considering Ozai. If she were to do it, she would not only endanger her family, but also the entire village. But before they can come to a decision, the spirit appears, and Ursa approaches it.
With a bit of shame, Ursa asks the Mother of Faces for a new face. The spirit responds that she senses a lot of pain within her, and asks if she believes a new face will erase her suffering. Ursa acknowledges that it won't, as her pain stems from memories of her past life. The Mother of Faces then offers not just a new face, but also a new mind, one that won't recall anything about her past life. The spirit also explains that she won't forget Ikem, as he is not part of her past life, but her children are.
Ursa is torn between her happiness and her children, so, with tears in her eyes, she apologizes to Zuko and Azula and decides to accept her new face and mind. The Mother of faces covers Ursa's head with her hands to complete the transition, and when she removes them, we see Ursa's new identity. She runs into the arms of her beloved, and it's shown how they marry, have a little girl, and live their new life, now as Noren and Noriko.
However, the story doesn't end here, as this comic not only delves into Ursa's life, but also follows Zuko and Azula on their quest to find their mother. Both encounter the Mother of Faces, and upon inquiring about Ursa, the spirit informs them of her change of face. Azula immediately sets off to find Noriko, prompting Zuko to rush after her before she does something dangerous. Fortunately, Zuko arrives at Noriko's house before Azula. He decides to enter and asks Noriko if she is happy. Noriko is quite confused, but answers affirmatively, stating that she is where she belongs.
Learning this brings a smile to Zuko's face, and he decides to leave, allowing his mother to live her new life. However, Noren stops him and insists Zuko to tell the truth. So, Zuko reveals to Noriko that he is the Fire Lord and her son. As Noren tries to explain to her wife everything that has happened, Azula bursts into the house, attacking everyone. She heads straight for Noriko, accusing her for always thinking of her own daughter, as a monster. Noriko tenderly touches Azula's cheek and states that if it's true that she's her mother, then she apologizes for not having loved her enough.
These words deeply unsettle Azula, prompting her to flee the scene. Zuko and Noriko start chasing her, but suddenly the Mother of Faces approaches them. Noriko is asked if she wants her old face and memories back. Zuko tries to stop her, fearing she'll lose her newfound life, but Noriko accepts without hesitation. Afterwards, Ursa and Zuko finally have a heartfelt conversation about everything that has transpired.
The last time we hear about Ursa is in the comics Smoke and Shadow, although it's a slightly shorter story. In it, Zuko invites his mother and family to return to Capital City, as now that he is the Fire Lord and Ozai is incarcerated and powerless, there's no danger. Throughout the panels, we see Gigi, Ursa and Noren's daughter, projecting her mother now that she has a new face, which is quite understandable as she is a very young and confused child. But this is not the only thing tormenting Ursa.
Even though she agreed to return to the city and appears happy about it, deep down, she's terrified of going back to the place where she spent her worst years along Ozai. Everyone notices Ursa's discomfort, but only Iroh realizes the true reason behind it. He helps her confront her fears and encourages her to visit Ozai. She agrees, and upon reaching his cell, Ozai's first reaction is to threaten her and her family. But even though Ursa is initially scared, she gathers her courage and confronts him.
She tells him that after all these years, she can finally see who he truly is. A small man trying with all his might to be big, but his heart is so small that he has no room for his son, his daughter, his brother, or even himself. With these words, Ursa bids farewell to Ozai, leaving him screaming in frustration in his hell, while she goes back with her beloved family and finally lives in peace. And thus concludes one of the most significant mysteries in Avatar The Last Airbender. But if you want to keep watching our videos, please subscribe, and we recommend you this other video that we're sure you'll like. We love you all! Bye!